But on the left, I've been called a racial slur. I can't even tell you how many times. Hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds of times.
That's the
Okay.
way it's always been.
Yeah.
Right.
White people, black people,
Yeah, that's the
mainly
way it's
black,
always
but
been.
there are some white. A lot of
we've
white
gotten
people
white.
call house N word is
Yeah,
common.
we've gotten white.
Recently, the last 6 months or so, my satire character got a couple racial slurs from people on the right. And I'm like,
it's happening.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
happening.
You know, and it
It's
just breaks
happening.
like, I'm just
Because it's like the question
sick of
is, what do you do to that?
Mhm.
Because like what you just said, they are sick of it.
Mhm.
And but man, what do you do to try to temper that? To temper that response? I don't think there's anything you can really do.
You could go back to what we did originally when the slaves were first freed. And we had to change the mindset of people about Black America, especially in the South, and during Jim Crow too.
Yeah.
And there was two, and I'm sure you guys have read this history because you guys are good, well-learned Black history, Black Americans, Black conservatives. But there was the Booker T. Washington School of Thought. Yeah. And then there was the W.E. Yeah, exactly. W.E. Du Bois.
Yeah.
I always and Booker T. Washington was all about showing white America that Black America can make it without their help, that we're respectable citizens, that you guys can accept us into society because we're respectable. We can contribute. And people like George Washington Carver, I have a lesson on him in my school, Exodus Institute. He did more for race relations in that time than almost any other Black American. And all he would do is he would go to these, and they actually hired him to do this. He would go to these speaking engagements in the South that were full of white, good old boy types. Yeah. And he would, instead of talking about, oh, this is what you guys need to do for Black America or whatever, he would just go in and he would share about his experiments, and he would share his character, and he would just talk about, science. And he had this way of talking about nature and science that just made you love God's creation. And it would start with the audience being like, who's this Black guy who know-it-all, to the end, standing ovation. It was little short, sweet, kind-hearted, and it did so much for race relations.
Yeah.
And so there is something to be said about, just earning respect as just good human beings and good contributors to society. And that's just not happening right now.
It's not.
Yes.
Even Debbie Downer a little bit. That picture you just painted about what was happening with George Washington Carver to the white audience, actually for the past, I don't know how many years now, at least a decade, has been happening for the leftist audience, where the Black speaker is standing before the white audience and saying, this is the trial, this is our victimhood. And and then they've sent them out with marching orders of the Black experience. And then what happens is little old, now in the know, white American meets Brandon and Darren. And then they feel audacious enough to treat us terribly because of the way we think. It's like, well, no, I know all about Black people now. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
You're not supposed to say these things. I've heard it. I read the blogs.
Yep.
I moved to DC.
Okay. So you fled in wisdom.
Yes.
You fled in wisdom from California, and you fled swinging. You took some swings and you left some impressions, and then you bopped and went to Florida where it's safe.
For now. Yeah, exactly. We just found out that 43 airports in this country received flights of migrants, illegal immigrants from the Biden administration. There's an app. So he created an app that the US government created an app. So 300,000 illegals were flown secretly into the country, into 43 different airports in America.
That's insane.
And all they had to do was apply on this app for asylum. Wow. And they were flown in from their countries. This isn't even people crossing the border. This was from January of last year to December. And the only reason why we know about this is because lawyers sued through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
And so I've actually noticed an uptick of illegals in Florida, and I'm wondering if we got some of those.
Yeah.
And I really think that's they're going to put away COVID. They're over Black America. I mean,
yeah.
so Biden and Kamala said Black Lives Matter and George Floyd like 27 times when they were running.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have they said Black Lives Matter since they've been in office?
No, not